If the God of the Bible exists, and he is the ultimate evil being in the universe, wouldn't it stand to reason that all his followers would be evil beings themselves? Not necessarily. In a previous video, I detailed how the ultimate evil God would likely betray humanity by basing salvation on faith, and thus allowing thousands of different religions, sects, and cults to develop instead of just one, which would result in very few people actually being saved, no matter how sincerely they tried to get it right. So what would this evil God's followers actually be like? To answer this question, it may help to look at known evil power structures, the most familiar example of which would have to be Adolf Hitler in Nazi Germany. Most ordinary Germans of that era believed Hitler was their savior from economic depression, and thus naturally considered him good. They weren't aware of, or didn't believe, his true evil intentions. They probably wouldn't have supported him if they'd known. But Hitler's most fanatical and loyal supporters, the Nazi fundamentalists, if you will, often did know his true intentions and believed his final solution for the Jewish people was a good thing. So how do Hitler's followers compare with those of the God of the Bible? Well, most ordinary Christians believe God offers them salvation, and thus naturally consider him good. Most of them aren't aware of the evil actions he commits or condones in the Bible, or they don't actually believe the stories are literally true. But God's most fanatical followers, especially conservative fundamentalist Christians, usually not only believe the Bible is inerrant, but consider even the most cruel and sadistic actions it describes God committing as being just and good. Thus, one might conclude that most of the ultimate evil God's followers would actually be good, decent people who simply don't know the whole story. Indeed, that's what we see in most Christians. But what about the more hardcore, fanatical believers? Wouldn't we expect to see them behaving in evil ways, perhaps even justifying their horrible actions in the name of God? Actually, we do. The Bible is full of examples of people like Moses and Joshua and Gideon who ordered the killings of thousands of people, including innocent children, all in the name of God. Later came millions more deaths and misery from the Crusades, the Spanish Inquisition, witch trials, slavery, the destruction of entire native populations, the Holocaust, also committed in the name of God. And even in our more enlightened modern times, fanatical Christians kill abortion doctors and homosexuals and abuse and kill children. Again, all in the name of God. If God were good, do you think he would allow such atrocities to happen in his name? Don't you think his most devoted followers would be more moral than non-believers? But instead, we're constantly discovering that their highest figures of moral authority, priests, ministers, pastors, are molesting children, or they're publicly condemning homosexuality while privately having gay sex. Not only is that hypocritical, but their paragon of morality, Jesus, never said anything against homosexuality. Instead, what he did condemn, repeatedly, was divorce and remarriage. Yet those moral authorities turn a blind eye to those in their own congregations who have done just that, even though their divorce rates are high, almost 30% higher than atheists or agnostics. This flagrant hypocrisy even extends into the secular realm of science. Although the vast majority of life and earth scientists are non-religious, about 0.1% are so-called creation scientists, who are primarily Christian fundamentalists. While all ethical scientists must accept all verifiable evidence that contradicts any claims they may make, creation scientists willingly and openly ignore any evidence that contradicts their beliefs. That's essentially lying by omission. That's not moral behavior, and it's not what you would expect from the followers of a good God, is it? It's interesting that atheists, whom theists regularly claim reject morality and revel in sin, often exhibit behavior that is more moral than that of many theists, including Christians. Unfortunately, reliable data on prison populations are hard to find, but theists, especially fundamentalist theists, do average significantly lower scores on intelligence tests than do atheists, and lower intelligence correlates with increased criminal behavior. In addition, the least religious nations on Earth, Norway, Australia, Iceland, Canada, the Netherlands, Sweden, France, Switzerland, Japan, Denmark, Belgium, the UK, are also the healthiest based on homicide rate, infant mortality, life expectancy, education, and per capita income, while the US, one of the most religious nations in the developed world, suffers from unusually high rates of homicide, abortion, teen pregnancy, sexually transmitted disease, and infant mortality. This is not what we would expect to see if Christians are moral and atheists are immoral. Fundamentalist Christians are quick to point out that brutal communist leaders like Mao and Stalin were atheists. That may be true, but their brutality had nothing to do with their views on religion, but instead with their political ideology. They didn't abuse people in the name of atheism any more than they did so in the name of their uniforms or their choice of language. It was their totalitarian political philosophy that was the source of their evil, not the lack or presence of religious belief. That's because religious belief does not equate to moral behavior. After all, there have been Christian kings who were cruel tyrants. And Adolf Hitler mentioned in various speeches and writings that he believed he was doing God's work, yet he's considered the quintessential example of pure evil. The one thing all these leaders have in common is not their religious belief, but their totalitarian rule. They're good examples of how absolute power corrupts absolutely. As a final example of how atheists are more moral than theists, this is what militant theists do to further their religious beliefs. And this is what militant atheists do to further their anti-religious beliefs.